Hello Tubesters, it's Gav. This is the second, an intro anyway, to the second part of the ramble along as I clean a couple of figures video. It went on for an hour and a half when I was about to load it all up, so I thought I'd put it into chunks. So, first part, you don't get an intro, thank God for that, you're saying to yourselves. And the second part, I just thought I'd better introduce it because it will just go up, and if somebody just catches the second half, there's no explanation to it. So I genuinely just put it up. I felt like having a chat, and I thought, well, I'm cleaning these figures, I might as well switch a video camera on. It took me about 15 minutes by the time I've got everything sorted out. And yeah, I just thought anybody that has never, I know, not many, but if you haven't cleaned a figure before, if you're just getting into wargaming or painting wargaming figures or display figures, if they're like these metal ones, you might pick something up. But it was really just done for, I fancied a chat, and I thought there might be somebody else out there that just wants to have something to listen to as they work along on their own projects. So thanks a lot, thanks for the perseverance if you have persevered. If you haven't, I don't blame you, I wouldn't. And Archie here has only just woken up, haven't you, lad? Yeah. So thanks a lot, and I'd say enjoy the video, but you probably won't. See you on the next one. Right, let's get on with this, on the torso and the head and the rest of it. This isn't the sharpest blade we've got, but it'll do the job. Right, what I'd normally do is, what I'm going to do now, yeah, I picked up the wrong file, but this is fine. I do use this guy as well, this whatever they call this, but it's a square faced one. I'm sure my Mara Jeff in Colorado would know. That's Jeff Donahue Scale Modelling. Go check out Jeff Donahue Scale Modelling, because Jeff is a top class modeller and he knows his stuff. You will often hear me refer to him as Colorado Jeff, because we've obviously got Jeff in Illinois. Now he's got his bonnet de police, so it's like a forage cap that they'd wear when they weren't wearing the shako. You'll see sculptors, figure companies depict them wearing them instead of the shako when they're in the ranks attacking something, like they've lost their shako and they're wearing that. I don't know how frequent that was, but it just makes a nice bit of variation. I can understand why they do it. As you can see, I bang a lot of these cartridge boxes up, you know, put a lot of dings in them, you know, the worn leather, but I'd probably say just make them all slightly different. So have some really banged up, have some where there's just, you might just put a couple of scratches, and it doesn't have to have the leather showing through. Don't forget, a fresh scratch can often just be a fresh scratch. So it's instead of, if you've got a black leather cartridge case, just use, you know, a lighter grey, just or a French grey. What's good, let me just see. Where are you? That's not the one I wanted, of course. No, why would you be where I could actually find you? Oh, there we go. Like this is like French Mirage blue. Makes good scratches. Luftwaffe blue makes good scratches. You know, and obviously black grey. But just to make some light scratches on your cartridge boxes. There's always a debate on how did these have white covers over the linen covers over the cartridge boxes with the French to protect them a bit, and you know, some people show them with them on and some don't, and some say, oh, they never wore them. I just you know, I know people are opinionated or have opinions, and that's fine. Obviously, some of us are living in a free world, and we can have them. But I just think if somebody does something, if they say, you see them on these Facebook groups and that, or sorry, people put it up, and then they get slated by people, or in brackets, well-meaning people who want to point out the errors of their ways. Say, oh, it wasn't like this, or you've done this, and I just think it's your figure. You know what I mean? It's, if you've put it up, and most of the people that are slating them never put anything up of their own work. They just come on here to, I wouldn't say troll, I don't say on here, I'm on about Facebook groups and that, but, personally, nah. I do my figures, I do my best to research my figures. It's my research, my figures. If I've not asked for, this is going to sound horrible, you just want people to say nice things about your work, whether you're painting a figure, and this is anybody, I would have thought, a figure, making a car, making a model car, making a model tank, aeroplane, it's not hard to go out your way to help make somebody's day, you know what I mean? But why you have to, then you get the other group of people that feel that it's their public duty to tell you every bit that you've got wrong. And the problem with a lot of these guys, they set them, who makes people the expert? Does that make sense? When do you become an expert? When do you become somebody who can say they didn't have that, they had this, or they only wore that up to that year, and I just think, no, I don't. You're somebody who reads books, like I do, like the next person next to me painting, or the person down the road. We read books and we make our ideas up from them, if that makes sense. No more than the person that's taking you to task because something in their opinion isn't right. Now, you get on Facebook groups, people say critiques welcome, and that's that's perfectly fine, because that person has said to you, I've got no problem, if you think my pom-pom is the wrong colour, the linen cover over the shako, they never had greeny grey ones, they only had black, and the one that I showed you on that earlier on the figure I first completed. If somebody's asked for a critique on something, then that's fine. But if somebody's just put a general pictures up to say, hey guys, this is what I'm doing, I've just completed this, then I just think, say nice things or don't say nothing. You know what I mean? And because, as I say, what suddenly makes that person think, that their opinion is more valid than somebody else's? And then sometimes you'll get it, and I've had this a lot, they'll put it in, nice painting, and then you can see a chunk of text, and you just know they're not saying nice painting, I really like this, blah, 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 blah. You know that the nice painting is just, it's a softener to actually then start, and then the word but comes in, and you think, oh, here we go. I'm not trolling you, I'm not flaming you, because I said nice painting. Yeah, right. There's a really nice face on this guy. Very, very nice. Sometimes on Perry's the eyes are hard to paint, and I wonder if they deliberately make that, this is on the 28th, if they deliberately make that so because they know people don't like painting eyes on figures. And also there is the big debate again on would eyes be seen at that scale? Sometimes on Perry's I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I will just leave them darkened in the eye sockets, because you normally can't see them, but on these 40 mils you can just about see them, especially when you've got your extra magnification glasses on. But I don't go over the top when I'm painting my eyes. I'll put some, and I never use stark white or anything. I usually use a off-white, and I'll put it in there. But by the time I've put the iris stroke pupil, and no, I don't go for the colours of the eyes. It is just a black dot. But when you put that in, you should just hopefully see a very tiny bit of off-white, grey-white in the corners, or one corner, because what you'll have to do, like with this guy, he's looking almost over his shoulder, so you might not get away with really putting the pupil there, because that's a good old trick, is putting the pupil in the corner of the eye, because that'll, you don't have to worry about them being all fried egg lookalikes. But again, you can get away with this guy. You don't have to do the eyes on him. They're small enough that you can just put darker shadow tones in the eyes and have done with that. You know what I mean? And then if you can see under magnification or whatever, then just maybe they'll sometimes put the eyelids in. I believe the Voltigeur I just painted had eyelids, and I just put a very tiny small dot on that. But yeah, really nice figures. I hope I can sell them, because it's the only way I can paint more. You can't. I can't afford. Sometimes my figures don't sell, and I end up with a box load or 2 or 3 box loads of figures with no customers for them, and it sometimes might take me a year or 18 months to find somebody who'll buy them. And the problem is, for me, you know, as I say, I need the income off the figures to buy more figures. So hopefully these go. I'll be knocking the video off in a minute, only because I know that it'll go on for ages. I just thought I'd fancy putting a video up, and I was going to do these, and I thought, you know what, rather than the house for the 15mm that I was going to show you, which I don't want to do until I've got a bit more on, I just fancied a chat, so I just thought, well, I'll stick this guy up. I'll say the other guy I'll do off. That's it, Gav. So he's got a great face, and then try and file it off. Just watch for the shako as well. There's usually a mould line. Normally I'll be closer to the figure than this. It's just I've got a camera over my head. I think we've got still a bit more of a ding than we have on that cartridge box after I've gone to town with cleaning it. That's where that worm was. It's not essential. It's not. Just feel. And with the Perry figures again, I would just run your feet. You can usually feel them. You can feel the sharp edges of a worm sticking up. I've noticed there's one. See, it's a little sneaky bugger behind this blanket. Great coat roll. Only a tiny little thing, but enough to, as I say, the minute you start putting paint on. And then I say it's the last thing you want to do is when you're painting a figure, is to then have to start peeling paint off. I'm not sure if that's, I think that's just a mould line. So where's my sharp scalpel blade? Where is it, Gav? It's probably right in front of you, you fool. Right. I haven't actually done much with the blade on this one. After I said I use it to get rid of mould lines. And also, if you are using the scalpel blade to get rid of mould lines, and get it on camera, Gav, as you're talking, you'll often curl up that metal as you bring your blade up. Obviously it'll take a curl, like a shaving of metal more or less, you know, like a wood shaving curls up. Just make sure you know that that's there, and you snap it off with your end of your blade, or when you're in the brushing them off in some soapy water afterwards. There's sometimes a faint one across the cross belts, but there isn't on this guy. So one on the top. Some manufacturers, a favourite one is the top. I think Front Rank were always bad for that. Well, they still will be, because obviously they've got the same moulds. With the Front Rank one, always check for the mould line across the top here, because that's always it was weird, because it would be slightly recessed and it'd be horrible to try and file it down to without damaging everything else around. Now what I do with the tops of shakos when they've got a cover over, I do use me round file rather than a flat one again. I don't like to give it a complete flat top, because obviously it might be a bit of waves in the material. So we're coming to the end of this guy in a minute. But I'll probably knock it off now and go over it. I just want to go over it with the camera off the top of my head and have one last good look. So yeah, I'll be going over this guy one more time with me sanding sponge, chase out any last mould lines or worms. What I just wanted to say is, obviously when it's done, and I better put that there so I remember to actually clean them at the same time. I don't normally super glue them while they're in this, as in one piece. To be honest with you, you can super glue them and you can put them in the warm water, sluice them around, and they should hold. I mean, if the arm's going to fall off, then it's not, you've not really done a good enough job in the first place. But I don't really need to with this. I'll be cleaning these separate items. Super glue I use, so let's do the washing. Soapy water, dish detergent, warm water. I like to use, if you've got electric toothbrush or any toothbrush, that's what I use. Now be careful when you're using your wife's toothbrush or your girlfriend's, because when you get metal filings in there, she gets them in the teeth and she's not best pleased. I don't know why, it's just life. No, but these are old toothbrush heads, and they make brilliant, they're just the right size, shape, all the rest of it, in your soapy water clean off. I just thought, don't throw them away, keep a couple in your box for cleaning fingers with. That was that. What was the other bit? Oh, super glue I used some cheap super glue. When you see the Jeep I'm building and I'm having to fill a load, do not get me started on the amount of filling I had to do the other night on that again. Finally getting a paint job on her tomorrow. But starting a paint job. But I used cheap super glue for that from the Range, which is just a UK fairly cheap shop, and sells anything from furniture to wine glasses, that type of stuff. But I love me Gorilla super glue gel. So I use that other stuff, the thinner stuff, for mixing with talcum powder to fill things. I could use the talcum powder method on this because it makes it quite a strong bond, but I do prefer, if there is going to be a gap, sometimes there isn't, but if there is, I can't do that at the moment because there's obviously everything attached. Well, that's supposed to be attached, but there's a worm and everything in the way. But I will putty around the gap if there's going to be one, and that just gives it a bit of extra strength as well. But you don't have to worry about sanding it. If you're going to use a bit of, you can either use plastic putty if it's a tiny thin gap, or epoxy putty, the two parts. It doesn't matter what type of putty it is, Magic Sculpt. What's that? The one in the box that I always use and keep forgetting the name of. But anyway, 2-part tiny piece. And then just get yourself some of these, I've said it before, but get yourself some of these, where are we? Silicone moulding, sculpting tools. See how flexible they are, different shapes. That's my favourite, the pointy one, because it tends to be. But you'll just use some either water or some isopropylene alcohol and just blend it in around the seam, and it just goes, and you're fine. Then you don't have to do any sanding to the, because you often find people if they've got to glue something down or put it on a plastic figure, oh, I've got to sand it, and then it gets all in the way. Well, you don't. If you use those, especially like plastic figures, if you use those sanding, the sculpting tools, again, they're cheap as chips. They're Chinese ones. I think mine were about £4 with the postage, maybe a fiver, and they'll last me. Should last me a good 2 or 3, 4 years. So yeah, that's all you need really. Thanks for listening to me yammer away, or waffle, and all the other stuff it's called. I'll be doing this guy, crack on with the other guy, which is the British Light Infantry Sergeant. I'll just get him out. I know you've seen him before, but is he in what? No, he's in 2 pieces as well. We've got this guy as well to do, which this guy I'm really looking forward to doing. I think he'll come up nice. He's light infantry, but he's not light infantry 95th Rifles or 60th Royal American Rifles. 60th Rifles, Royal Americans, whichever way you want to call it. They're obviously in dark green. Baker Rifles, Royal Americans should have the red colours, is it? The cuffs, compared to the black of the 95th. But he's light infantry, but he's got a normal musket, but you know, using light infantry tactics. And he'll be a normal red coat. But I thought this was a fantastic, really nice pose. They've done some cracking poses, and you can get a unit of these. I think it's about 12, not including these, but they do like a standard, say march attack, whatever you want to call it, for about 20 odd quid. Which, to say these are a fiver, it's a really good. I'm actually thinking of getting a unit of them, but it all hinges on if I can sell any of these. If I can't sell them, then I will get the odd occasional one, but I'll just, you know, it'll be as and when, because they're a fiver a piece. They're not cheap, but they don't break the bank, if that makes sense. So I think they're fantastic for the cabinet, but obviously they're designed for skirmish gaming, where you're just using 6 or a dozen of them. The only thing, as I say, with 40mm is obviously you've got to then do 40mm if you're going to do you don't need a lot of buildings, do you? But maybe like a farmhouse or a barn or something, I don't know. But I just do, because I just thought that all of them, some of the Spanish, they do some Spanish guerrillas, a couple of, I'm not really that fussed with, like the shooting monk and things like that, but I like a lot of the British and the French. I think I might do some Portuguese, and they've definitely got Spanish. Some of the Spanish look nice. They do some mounted figures as well. I think they're about £10 a piece. So they're worth looking into. You know, if your eyes are a bit tired and you want to go up a scale, if you're looking to do maybe a bit of display figure painting, but you don't want to buy a £20 54mm figure. And these are fairly indestructible. You can't go wrong with them. You know, you've seen they clean up fairly well. You watch now. I'm going to go back to this guy and find off mould lines everywhere, which all you guys have seen and I haven't. But them's the breaks. But yeah, really, really nice, and each one's different. Even the march attack guys, you know, in like a basic march pose, even though that, you know, slightly different. I really hope, I suppose it just depends on how popular they are, but I mean, they've been out a while, but I really hope they add to them. And there's so many Napoleonic units that can be made from, you know, that they could turn to. Confed of the Rhine, and I'd love to see some of their 28mm stuff for Egypt in the 40mm range. That would be brilliant. I'd definitely have some of them for myself. That was another project that never got off the ground, wasn't it? I bought me a couple of uniform books for Egypt and a couple of other books, just general, and in the end, what have I done? 18mm Jena Austadt Prussians and Saxons. Oh well, and there'll be French joining them at some stage. But I would love to do some, you know, if the Perrys, well, they'll never watch this channel, but I'd love them to do some 40mm Egypt stuff. That'd be brilliant. Right, thank you very much for if you have put this on to listen to. Hope it's kept you company. As I say, it's nice just to listen out to what people have got to say sometimes, even if it's hard to drivel like me. So I've just found a piece of flattened photo etched brass, probably off the Lexington at some stage, and I have no idea what it was supposed to be. Oh well. Anyway, look after yourselves, and coming up, well, I will have an update on the 15mm house, because you know what I'm like with my projects, they just go south. And that's not down to Bob at Greybeard Models. Go check Bob at Greybeard Models out, lovely fella. When he's not watching cricket or in the pub, he's building models. Now, yeah, my projects stall, they go all over the place. The 15mm, as I say, just because you haven't seen, there's no point keep showing you the same vehicle, the Hornies. I must confess, I've done no more sculpting since, but I will be getting back onto that. I'm probably going to buy a few figures for that, like off the sprue, because I don't think my sculpting is going to be good enough to do what I want with it. And I want some figures, standing figures, if that makes sense. I will keep trying, but I'm not going to ruin... I've really enjoyed doing that Hornies, and I don't want to ruin it with some really dodgy sculpting, if that makes sense. But I need to... I'm going to start on the 250 Hanamag Alt. It's not Hanamag in it when it's a 250 Alt, but it's you know, the light recce half track. That'll be broken down near the Hornies. But I need to. I want to get in my head what setting it is. I was never going to do any buildings, and the building I'm making is an absolute horror. But I've gone this far with it now, and I'm not retreating. So I'll show you that on a video soon. I'm doing the priming and the black. I don't know whether to prime it grey or just go straight to black and just put black lacquer over it. That's the Jeep I'm talking about, 1 in 35 scale Jeep. So you'll have that between now and Friday. An update probably between now and the weekend on with a little house I'm building. It's only a backdrop, it's only a face thing, it's not a full house. Heaven forbid the amount of mistakes I'm making on this one, just doing a front view. So there's that. I think that's about everything. We're covered, we're down, we're finished. Look after yourself. I believe Gav has left the building.